Meet Kang, another virgin loser who is somehow well-built, but one day his life turned to hell. His father died while boiling the milk that he brought back after years, and if this was not enough, even Kang was burnt badly in the desperate try of saving his long-lost father, including his not-so-big sword down there that he was so proud of. If this was still not enough, even his strong right hand was burnt. So all hope seemed lost. But one fateful day, his friend brought him a game to lend a hand. And once inside, Kang felt a surge of energy that revived his wilting sword down there, and even his right hand. Kang saw hope and decided not to be a virgin loser no more. The story begins in the depths of an ancient forest, where towering trees stretch endlessly toward the sky, their branches casting shadows over a battlefield drenched in chaos. Elves, swift and graceful, clash with monstrous creatures that snarl and thrash with unrelenting ferocity. The clang of steel, the crack of magic, and the roars of beasts echo through the night. One elf stumbles, his strength waning as a massive beast looms over him. Its claws glint in the pale light, poised for a killing blow. In that desperate instant, a figure bursts forth from the shadows. With a single decisive slash, the monster's throat is cut, and it collapses at the elf's feet. Stunned, the elf staggers back, his eyes wide as he watches the mysterious warrior lower his blade. When the final monster falls and silence settles over the forest, the elf approaches the stranger, his voice trembling with both relief and gratitude. He bows his head, thanking him not only for saving his life, but for preserving the fragile peace of their tribe. With solemn sincerity, he vows that this act of heroism will never be forgotten. At his side, a young girl, his sister, remains quiet, her hands clasped tightly as she gathers the courage to speak. With a gentle nudge from her brother, she finally steps forward. Her cheeks flush with nervousness, but her voice carries a shy determination as she accepts the warrior's earlier offer. She declares her wish to walk beside him, making her feelings clear at last. The scene then shifts. Lanterns glow warmly against the backdrop of a lively city where the figure arrives with the elf maiden at his side. The streets are alive with celebration. Citizens cheer, music fills the air, and petals scatter across the cobblestones. At the heart of the plaza, the couple stands before the crowd. Their engagement is announced, and a roar of joy rises around them. Rings are exchanged, hands are joined, and beneath a shower of light, the two seal the moment with a kiss. But as the scene swells with emotion, the camera slowly pulls back, and the truth is revealed. The entire tale, every clash in the forest and every cheer in the city, has been part of a cinematic introduction, a dazzling promotional sequence for a game. The human giving the presentation told the audience that he had spent countless hours agonizing over how to introduce this. But the game named Ares was not a simple game. All the characters inside it were equipped with AI, making judgments and acting according to their own personalities. Ares was essentially another world for the player. The audience was shocked after hearing those words, wondering if what they had seen earlier was truly just gameplay footage when the people inside looked exactly like humans and were indistinguishable from reality. The presenter went on to explain that Ares was not just a realistic game. Pure Corporation had created a new world by implementing a super AI, a divine being that had been born and would serve as the god of Ares. This god would evaluate users directly and could grant them incredible abilities based on their achievements. Those who received revelations from the god of Ares would gain special powers and could rise as heroes with legendary fame, or they could build their own forces and reign as kings over entire empires. In other words, players could accomplish everything possible in reality and even achieve things that were impossible in the real world. The announcer, who was also the CEO of the company, introduced himself as Lee. After his announcement, the audience erupted into cheers and excitement over the new game, realizing that nothing like it had ever been seen before. With such groundbreaking quality, they were eager to pay and play. No one even dared to think of pirating it. People were buzzing with questions about how they could buy it and when it would be available. The CEO then revealed that the game was being released immediately. It was the year 2045 when Pure Corporation officially launched Ares, and the reaction was overwhelming. It did not just revolutionize the gaming industry, but also reshaped the culture of the entire world. The number of users crossed 1 billion in an instant. A year passed, and many players continued entering the beginner zone, a village where level 1 to 10 players resided. Everyone was still awestruck by the sheer realism of Ares, struggling to believe that what they were experiencing was truly a game. To them, it felt like traveling through breathtaking landscapes. They also discovered that their physical abilities and body conditions from the real world were directly reflected in the game. Because of that, customization was limited only to appearance features like face, hairstyle, or skin color. Height, weight, and physical build could not be altered. Suddenly, one player called out to another, pointing toward an event that had existed since the game's launch. It was a wooden training dummy that had to be broken with 10 strikes. More than 1.2 billion players had tried, but all had failed. The promise for success was enormous. A VIP capsule from Ares worth 50 million along with an additional 5 stat points in every attribute. Although breaking the dummy should have been easy with 10 hits, it had proven impossible. Even after attempts by national sports representatives and gold medalists, no one succeeded. The general consensus was that the dummy could not be broken, making it a legendary unsolved challenge. The player questioned why so many stood around watching instead of trying, but a hooded figure explained that it was because this day was special. Humanity's true and ultimate hope was appearing. Before the hooded player could elaborate, a rough voice cut through the crowd, telling them to step aside. Turning around, the hooded player saw a massive man with horns on his head. This was Manhwa, the strongest of the primates, infamous for feats of strength such as defeating a bear barehanded. Now, he was here to attempt breaking the wooden dummy that had defeated everyone else. As Manhwa clenched his teeth and advanced toward it, onlookers whispered about whether he was even human. The dummy looked small before his enormous frame, and many believed he would break it within just a few blows. Manhwa's excitement was clear as he imagined obtaining the capsule worth 50 million. Confidently, he launched his first strike with a smile. The dummy wobbled but did not break, bouncing back upright. Observers in a nearby lab watched the live stream nervously. A female assistant wished desperately for Manhwa's success, warning that if even he failed after the gold medalists, the public would accuse the company of creating an impossible quest to attract attention and money. Headlines would erupt, and they might be forced to intervene in the Ares system, something never before attempted. Her colleague, a male scientist, doubted the CEO would agree. She replied that he could, since he was the team leader, and even threatened to quit if the situation went badly. As the scene shifted back, Manhwa was sweating profusely, his pride shattered when the system message told him to try again next time. He could not believe he had failed. In the lab, the team leader sighed, realizing they were in trouble. The assistant jokingly began packing her things, saying they should run before the protest calls came flooding in, adding that she wanted dinner while they were at it. The team leader teased her that if he had to pay for dinner with his own money, then she would not be quitting. Just then, another subordinate called out to the team leader, saying there was another challenger. They turned to see someone approaching the dummy. This player wore only the basic gear given at character creation, equipment that could easily be replaced after hunting just 10 level 1 monsters. His weapon looked like a cash shop item, and many players had tried relying on such items before, only to fail. The subordinate felt guilty for bothering the leader, assuming this would be another wasted attempt. Yet curiosity lingered. As the player drew his sword, the team leader decided to leave for dinner. But suddenly, a loud slashing sound echoed from the stream. The lab staff turned around in shock, staring wide-eyed as the wooden dummy split cleanly in half. A system message appeared worldwide, congratulating the player for succeeding where billions had failed. He gained +5 to all stats, 200 fame points, and global recognition. The team leader's coffee slipped from his hand, crashing to the floor as he stared in disbelief. He muttered about how no one should have such power, while the assistant confirmed that Manhwa had been their last known hope. The mysterious new player seemed completely ordinary, but then the leader noticed something unusual. He quickly ordered the subordinate to check the grade of the sword used. After a moment of searching, the results left everyone stunned. The sword was identified as an epic grade item named Daylight, with 3,000 durability and 143 attack power. However, it carried a bizarre restriction. It could only be used by its creator or individuals level 40 and above. The leader broke into a nervous sweat, fear replacing his earlier shock. He wondered how this ordinary-looking player had obtained such a weapon, and more importantly, who this mysterious figure really was. The scene shifts to a burning furnace where a huge hammer was clashing with boiling metal. With a loud clang, the metal gave off a nostalgic sound, and the fire was so intense it could draw the sweat from anyone's body. The clanging came from a furnace, where someone was calling out to his father, the blacksmith. This was the same boy who once cried when he realized his father had returned, promising that he would protect his parents no matter what. But suddenly, fire erupted from the old man's body as he turned around and told his son that he was still burning, both outside and inside. The boy screamed at his father, begging him to get out of the flames, and while screaming continuously, he woke up. It had only been a dream, but it was enough to make the boy wake up crying. His back, though well-built, was covered in burned scars and ferocious marks. The scene then shifted to the lobby of a hospital, where another man was looking at a tablet screen, wondering why foolish people were still holding on to hope when they couldn't even break a wooden dummy with pure physical strength. This man was named Kim. He was called out by the boy, who was completely covered from head to toe. From his slightly uncovered face, a huge scar could be seen. Kim was surprised his friend really came, but Kang told him that he shouldn't call him during the day. Kim grew annoyed, wondering what he was supposed to do since Kang refused to meet him in the evening due to work. Because of this, Kim couldn't even go into Kang's father's hospital room. It was revealed that Kang was the same boy who had the nightmare. He asked Kim what he wanted. Kim wondered if Kang wasn't suffocating under all those clothes. But hearing this, Kang immediately pulled off his mask and snapped, asking if his friend wanted him dead since it wasn't a funny joke. Analyzing the situation, Kim decided to come straight to the point and asked Kang if he had ever heard of a game called Ares. But Kang didn't know anything about it. Kim explained that it was the hottest game at the moment, powered by a super AI, and that there was an event for beginners in which no one had succeeded yet. Even celebrities had failed, but if Kang succeeded, he would win a VVIP game capsule worth 50 million. Still, Kang wondered what his role in all this was. Kim couldn't believe his friend was so dense, telling him they should give it a try. But Kang wasn't confident at all, saying that after 1 billion people had failed, there was no way they could succeed. Kim admitted it would be difficult, but not impossible, because when it came to breaking the wooden dummy, Kang might be the only one with a real chance. Kang couldn't comprehend what Kim was talking about. The scene shifted to an apartment room where Kim took Kang, surprising him with what he saw, a giant VR capsule. Kim explained that it was a standard-issue capsule for playing Ares, worth a whopping 10 million. With a sync rate of about 85%, there shouldn't be any problem playing the game with it. Kang was shocked, wondering how Kim could spend 10 million so casually. But Kim insisted it was worth the investment, since if things went well in the game, incredible rewards would pour in, and they could even trade items for real-world currency. Everyone was jumping on the bandwagon. Kim didn't want to explain further and urged Kang to get inside. But Kang wasn't excited. He suddenly asked Kim about the source of the money. Kim dismissed the question, saying it wasn't important right now, and Kang should instead think about how much they could make. Kang, however, wasn't sure there was any guarantee of success, calling it a crazy idea. Kim was still adamant, calling it an investment and insisting they had a chance. But Kang wasn't willing to try. Kim had one more surprise. Inside Ares, the blacksmith class existed, and it was powerful. With it, Kang could shine, since he was the only son of a world-renowned master craftsman and the sole successor to his skills. Kim was sure Kang could cut the wooden dummy. Kang grew frustrated, suddenly ripping off his cap and telling Kim that he didn't even know how Kang had been surviving since the incident. When the cap came off, it was revealed that nearly 70% of Kang's body, including his face, was burned. He was in no condition to attempt anything. In a flashback of the incident, it was shown that Kang had tried desperately to save his father, charging into the fire again and again, not caring if he was burning. Even after multiple attempts, the incident had taken everything from him. He barely survived, but his father never regained consciousness. Their family was too poor to cover the medical costs, so Kang began working manual labor. Being a blacksmith was his only trade, but even after 10 years of practice since the incident, he couldn't even drive a nail into a wooden block. His strength was gone, especially in his right arm. Kang explained to Kim that even if he was trying to help, he would handle his problems alone. He told Kim to take the machine back and return the money, because he didn't need his friend throwing away 10 million on someone who had already ruined his life. Kim reluctantly agreed but reminded Kang that he already knew his situation, that he was barely scraping by every month to pay for his father's hospital bills. Kim asked how long he thought he could keep it up, and even if he could, what about his own life? Kim pressed harder, asking if Kang planned to live forever in a burnt body. Still, Kim insisted this game could fix everything, since Kang's father's treatment cost 3 billion. Even if it was absurd, every penny would help. Kim didn't believe Kang should give up, because the Kang he knew once dreamed of living as a blacksmith, forging weapons so sharp they could be approved by Zorro and cut through anything. And he still had that chance in Ares. Kim was willing to take responsibility for the 10 million investment. All he wanted was for his friend to try just once. If it didn't work out, Kim promised not to force him again. Kang remembered the nightmare he always had, looking at his trembling right hand. The scene shifted to another worksite where Kang was hauling construction materials. He knew he needed to focus on reality, but Kim's words had planted a seed of hope. Kang needed money for his father's treatment, and when he looked at a blacksmith hammering metal nearby, something awoke inside him. The loud clang of metal echoed in his heart. Kang found himself back in Kim's room, unable to believe he had returned to the machine. He recalled Kim's words and, with a newfound resolve and hope, decided to try for his father's sake. Listening to the clang in his heart once again, Kang entered the game. He was welcomed to the world of Ares and began character creation. Setting his nickname as Ryuk, the system started customization. Suddenly, Kang was shocked. His body type was analyzed and his scars began to heal. It was as if his body was brand new. The system asked if he wanted to proceed with this appearance, and Kang agreed. Character creation was finished. As the system searched for a server, Kang felt newfound energy in his hands. Not only were his scars gone, but the strength in his right hand had completely returned. He smiled faintly, knowing he was now 10 million in debt to his friend who still believed in him and resolved to pay it back no matter what. The system announced he would be summoned to a random territory, and Kang appeared in the Barden territory beginner zone. The scene shifted to a small blacksmith's hut owned by an old man named Lin. He wasn't ready to give up and was determined to crush the pride of the instructors by forging a sword superior to anyone else. He slammed metal again and again, praying to God that it would work. But suddenly, a voice came from behind. It was Kang, telling the old man that recklessly slamming metal wouldn't work. That wasn't how a true sword was forged. Lin was shocked, wondering what the rookie was talking about. But Kang explained that even when forging a blade, he would never make a strong sword with that scale. Lin was stunned that an outsider of the world dared to intimidate him, but Kang told him that even if it was not his place to comment, he could see from one look that Lin was genuinely trying to forge a great sword, and he simply could not stand by and watch. Lin thought Kang was cocky, spouting nonsense when he knew nothing about smithing. Deciding to challenge the boy, Lin grabbed his sword and handed it to Kang, giving him permission to show the blacksmith what he could do, wondering if Kang really had the skills to back his words. Kang gripped the hammer, thinking that his original plan had been to get on the good side of the blacksmith and ask to use the forge, but maybe this plan would work as well. Still, Kang had one condition. When Lin asked what it was, Kang explained that if he proved his skills, he would keep the sword he forged. In return, he promised to show Lin something worth his while. Lin only smiled at the arrogance Kang carried, but he liked the boy's confidence and hoped it would last. However, he grew serious and warned Kang that if he failed, he would pay the price for being so cocky without reason. Kang agreed and began forging the hot metal with the hammer. For 10 minutes, Kang stood still, wondering if it had really been 3 years since he last forged. Even after talking big, he wasn't sure he still had the touch of the blacksmith he once was. Finally, the boy raised his hammer, knowing something had to be done. With a single clang of metal, he felt an insane rush, as if he really could do this. As he began forging the blade, memories of his father and Kim surfaced, those who had trusted him. He prayed for them to wait just a little longer. The forgotten feelings returned, the familiar clanging of steel, the searing heat against his skin. It felt good to be back, and Kang smiled while forging, remembering how his body once felt when he crafted a good blade. From Lin's perspective, he still didn't believe in Kang, thinking he was just an outsider spouting nonsense. But as he watched more closely, he realized Kang's form was not bad at all. He knew what he was doing. Even though Kang should have reached his limit, he kept smiling despite his fatigue. Lin wondered what the boy was so happy about, because in this place, results were everything. Without an amazing skill, everyone was bound to hit a wall. Lin had only let Kang do this to see if he might learn something, but as time passed, he wasn't ready to believe that an outsider could have the blacksmithing skill of a professional. Just then, Lin noticed something astonishing. Rather than simply hammering the metal flat, Kang was folding it, flattening it with pressure, reheating and tempering the steel again and again. Even Lin realized this was an excellent way to increase strength while eliminating impurities. He wondered why he had never considered such a simple technique. At first, he thought it was just for show, but he decided to use his appraisal skill to be sure. The appraisal revealed that the steel Kang was working with had been upgraded from D grade to C grade. Lin stood up in shock. Though he had forged C grade steel before, it had never ranked up this fast. Now the old man knew Kang wasn't bluffing, though he thought this had to be the boy's limit. There was no way he could raise it higher. To Lin, it was impossible. Cheap tricks couldn't change the fact that a level 1 brat with no skills could accomplish nothing. The scene shifted to the next day. Lin awoke, realizing he had dozed off. As he regained consciousness, he was stunned to see Kang still working, folding and tempering the steel with the same smile on his face. It didn't seem to tire him at all. Kang looked at the glowing metal with steady eyes. Lin wondered if Kang didn't get tired at all since he had been working all night. Appraising the steel again, Lin was astonished. The metal had reached B grade. He had never seen such a thing before. Reaching B grade without using any skill was unheard of, and Kang was still not stopping, aiming for an even higher grade. His eyes grew weary from staring, but he knew he was witnessing something extraordinary. Finally, Lin stepped forward, admitting he was convinced, and offered to help Kang without hesitation. Kang smiled and thanked the old man as they took notes and tempered the blade together. After another night of relentless work, the metal was upgraded again, this time to a grade, making it a rare sword. Lin couldn't believe it. He admitted he had a skill that let him see item grades, yet he had never seen a magic grade item in the starter village, let alone a rare one. Kang had forged a one-of-a-kind sword, but Lin wondered why the boy wasn't excited. Kang, with a deadly serious look, told him it was too early to celebrate. The blade still needed honing to a finer edge. It had to be crafted to withstand immense force without breaking. The edge was still far from perfect. Lin burst out laughing, admitting he had never met an outsider like him before. Kang only told him he had loved smithing since childhood. Suddenly, Lin pulled out a special material, a green ore radiating magical energy. He handed it to Kang, explaining that it was mithril ore, an heirloom passed through his family for generations. Kang was shocked, wondering why he was entrusted with such an important item. Lin explained that because of Kang, he had learned so much, even at his age, and besides, the mithril was far beyond his own skill to work with. He wanted to see what kind of sword Kang could create from it. Kang stared at the legendary ore in his hands, thrilled at the chance to forge with something that didn't even exist in the real world. Though he had never worked with mithril before, the opportunity was too great to refuse. Lin knew Kang would accept and was eager to learn alongside him. But then Lin had a strange request. He wanted to call Kang his master, even addressing him formally. Kang rejected the idea, reminding him he was old enough to be his grandfather. Lin laughed it off, repeating the cliché that age was just a number, and insisted he would become Kang's student. Their banter carried on through the night. Time passed. 1 month later in the game, Kang struck down the wooden dummy in a single blow with his epic blade, Daylight. Its description read, "A legendary sword crafted by the hands of a master craftsman, the likes of which would never again be seen in the starter zone." Kang wiped the sweat from his face. Despite being only a level 1 with no class, his stats read, Strength 35, Agility 37, Vitality 33, Wisdom 19, Intelligence 19, Dexterity 353. The scene shifted to the lab, where the team leader was watching Kang on a large screen at the management center. He listened as his assistant explained the whole story, admitting it was impressive. Sarcastically, the lady told him to get back to work or risk demotion. The frustrated leader tried to focus, but was interrupted when the lady reported Kang's details. His real name, Kang, age 23, residence in a small studio apartment in Dong City. He had logged in from an acquaintance's home. The leader was pleased by the information, especially since Kang's application for a VVIP capsule had just been approved. Shocked, he wondered if Kang had really contacted them or was willing to accept it. The lady informed him that Kang had agreed but firmly requested his real-world identity remain private. The team leader was baffled. Kang was practically a celebrity after breaking the wooden dummy. Why ignore such opportunities? But in the end, they agreed he must have his reasons for avoiding the spotlight. The leader asked where Kang was now, and the lady reported he had just entered the hunting training center. The scene shifted back to the game, where Kang entered a shabby-looking building. A man with long hair told him this was where real monsters appeared, and as a level 1, Kang stood no chance of passing the test. The man introduced himself as Ralston, mocking Kang and telling him not to waste time. He suggested Kang hunt rabbits first and return later, but Kang asked if Ralston couldn't see his stats, saying he wasn't there to waste time. Ralston was stunned, agreeing to let Kang prove himself. He told him to pick any sword, but Kang drew his own, declaring that if any weapon was allowed, he would use the sword he forged himself. The team leader knew that Kang had spent an entire month in the beginner zone, a place normally cleared in just 30 minutes, and thanks to that, his base stats were off the charts. More than anything, he held the only epic grade sword obtainable there, and yet he was still classless and still level 1. Even though the team leader had managed countless auditions and tests over the years, compared to them, what was happening now was absurd. Inside the office, the team leader was speaking to another man, wondering if they should simply leave everything to the god of the world without interfering, and whether they were supposed to just trust the super AI managing the game. On the laptop screen, the team leader and his assistant appeared worried about Kang. The team leader informed the man that right now Kang was in the Barden beginner hunting grounds. That man turned out to be the CEO, Lee, who thought that Kang probably had no idea what awaited him in the later stages, what was called the legendary class offer, if certain conditions were met. Meanwhile, the scene shifted back to the training ground, where instructor Ralston couldn't believe someone had brought their own sword, just a hand-forged blade. He wondered if Kang really thought of himself as some kind of blacksmith. Ralston smiled, thinking Kang had thrown away his future for such a worthless profession. He pitied Kang, but the boy had fire in his eyes, ready to do anything. Ralston explained that the hunting grounds were swarming with monsters on 3 sides, and that one trained swordsman was worth more than any shoddy weapon forged by a mere blacksmith. He questioned why anyone chasing such a profession would come to the training ground. The system notified Kang repeatedly that his affinity with instructor Ralston had decreased, but Kang remained calm and composed since he had faced such disdain many times in real life. He thought to himself that in the modern world, blacksmithing was nothing but a useless dream. But here, in Ares, he had already felt the thrill. His efforts could finally be recognized. Suddenly, Kang asked the instructor which swordsman had passed through the training ground and stood out as the most outstanding, because he wanted a test harder than the one they had taken. Ralston was infuriated. Even though he was rotting away as an instructor in the hunting grounds, he had trained countless students and had never seen someone so arrogant, especially a beginner. Provoked, the instructor proposed a trial, confirmed by the system notification. He asked Kang to follow him, explaining that his role was to teach newcomers the basics and run the confirmation test, but he also granted special trials to the rare few who showed true promise. The highest record belonged to the Stage 3 trial with swift goblins of level 6, vicious human-hunting creatures. The instructor wondered if Kang was truly ready. Ralston warned him that since he was insisting on such a reckless challenge, the punishment would also match. If he failed, he should not return for a week and should go hunt rabbits instead. Kang didn't care and asked if Stage 3 was the final trial, because he wanted to take them all up to the final stage. The instructor had never heard such words and had never met someone who dismissed his training methods so easily. Infuriated, he pulled a chain and released multiple goblins from the prison. The final Stage 4 trial monsters, mad goblins of level 15, infamous across the entire world. Almost no one had cleared Stage 3, and Stage 4 had never even been attempted. On the other hand, Kang was ready to fight monsters 15 times stronger than him. Multiple swift goblins, along with the mad goblins, rushed at their prey. Their attacks were immediately deflected by Kang's strong sword. Though it was his first real battle, he somehow held them off, confident that any blacksmith could see that no weapon could rival the raw power of his blade. He activated the tough sword skill, which boosted physical attack by 12% and defense by 8% for 40 seconds. With one swing, a swift goblin was obliterated like thin paper. Kang was sure there was no weapon in the beginner village that could surpass his sword. Before he could rest, another swift goblin attacked, landing a critical hit to his stomach. The instructor grew serious, knowing a critical hit was deadly. That was why swift goblins were called the beginner's nightmare. No matter how fine the weapon, without skill, no one could, but before he finished, he saw Kang stand again with 82% of his health still intact. Ralston could hardly believe it. A level 1 had survived a critical hit. It was because Kang had continuously forged weapons which boosted his stats. His strength and vitality were solid, though agility was still lacking. Still, the instructor knew the real danger was yet to come. The Mad Goblin was a level 15 monster capable of ranged attacks. One of its skills, Madness Thorns, used spikes from its body, hurling them at Kang and inflicting dizziness and reduced vision. Even so, Kang held on, refusing to give up. The instructor slowly began to feel impressed. The Mad Goblin leapt, but Kang focused, trusting the weapon he forged. With grim determination, he knew he had to finish it in a single blow. He slashed straight at the Mad Goblin's head, activating the passive skill Swift Blade, which boosted attack speed to 1.7x for 1 second. He knew that with this burst, he could bridge the level gap, but since it lasted only a moment, he had to time it perfectly. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Kang as the scene filled with dust and debris. When it cleared, Kang stood victorious. System notifications announced that both the Swift Goblin and Mad Goblin had been defeated. The instructor instinctively smiled, wondering how Kang had accomplished what even he could not. He began complimenting him, saying that even though his strikes were rough, every slash brought out the blade's true power. Ralston guessed Kang might have trained in swordsmanship before, but Kang simply smiled, telling him he only knew that a blacksmith must handle the weapons he creates. The instructor then noticed the scars on Kang's hands, realizing they were the marks of a true blacksmith. He immediately apologized for his earlier rudeness. The system notified Kang that his affinity with instructor Ralston had reached the maximum level. Ralston then wondered if Kang would hear his proposal. He swore he was doing it out of true respect for Kang's talent. He asked if Kang would consider becoming a Mad Lord, a legendary class. The team leader and assistant were shocked, unable to believe something so irrational was happening. The Mad Lord class was ranked even above the epic Mad Knight, which would make Kang a Class 2 special management user. The team leader knew it was an incredible opportunity, but once a class change request was accepted, there was no turning back. A Mad Lord commanded hundreds of Mad Knights. Kang would become a guardian of the world. The instructor waited for Kang's answer, believing with his talent he could rise as a king among knights. But Kang calmly declined, shocking everyone. He was certain he was a blacksmith, not a knight. Even the CEO was impressed, and the instructor immediately knew he had chosen the right person for the offer, a truly magnificent one. Meanwhile, Kang thought to himself that never in his wildest dreams had he imagined holding a hammer again, but in this game he felt it. His life as a blacksmith would begin anew. Just then a hidden quest popped up, telling Kang he would have to meet Lord Vans, a Grade B objective. The instructor handed Kang a letter of recommendation, telling him to go to the Lord's castle, where someone awaited an extraordinary blacksmith like him. As a reward, Kang received worn-out armor once worn by the Mad Lord. Though it wasn't functional yet, the instructor trusted Kang to make use of it. Ralston blushed as he told Kang to go prove himself as the best blacksmith ever. Kang grew shy at the constant praise. Even the team leader was exhausted by the excitement, wondering what kind of possibilities Kang would bring and whether he might one day reach the pinnacle of blacksmithing, opening the path to becoming the god of blacksmiths. As the scene shifted, multiple notifications kept popping up telling Kang that the training ground had been cleared, that he was entering the territory village, and that a main quest had been received because the tutorial was finally over. Kang knew that now the real fun would begin, but before that the system had been locked out because he still needed to pay the gas bill along with other things he had to do in reality. Kang understood that he had gotten used to the game and had even checked its potential, but his bank balance was still crying, and he knew that first he needed to secure his father's hospital fees and his living expenses. Suddenly, the phone rang and Kang picked it up as his friend asked if he had cleared the training grounds because he had been too busy with work to log in. Kang informed him that he had just picked up the quest and arrived at the territory village, knowing that Kim then told him he could now use the auction house and should head there first because equipment and items essential in the game were crafted and sold at the auction house for gold. And 10 gold equaled 10,000 won, with cash trades so active that many people actually did it as a profession. This was the real reason that Kim had put Kang into Ares, so that he could earn money, because while playing the game his friend had already realized that he had never seen anyone as incredible as Kang and his father when it came to creating swords, so he knew that the auction would be a good place. Kim was sure that once Kang would get a VIP capsule with 99.9% synchronization, it would be even more amazing, and he decided to flood the world with the works of the great master Blacksmith. Kang was almost in tears, while he just thanked his good friend for all that he did, and headed to cover the food that he had bought while thinking that his path was now clear. Kang knew that he would have to maintain his stamina and needed to focus more on crafting and quests to earn gold, and to do that he also needed to manage his day-to-day activities. Even when it was nothing compared to real blacksmithing work, gaming still drained a lot of energy, and if he wanted to do it for an extended period of time, he would have to be physically fit in real life. We see that the boy was running several kilometers while telling his father to just wait for him a little longer so that he could make sure to wake him up once again. After the training was done, Kang got back home and entered the world of Ares once again. He started accessing the auction house immediately after entering, and the system asked him for a shop name which he named Ryuk, the blacksmith. Suddenly he was teleported onto a giant floating scale which was hovering in between the clouds. The scenery was so magnificent that Kang took a good 10 minutes to take it all in. The system notified him that the shop had finally been created, and now he could list items on the auction board anytime and anywhere. He wondered what he should list first because aside from Daylight, he only had one prototype made at the forge. He decided to list the item Ryuk's first sword, which was a rare grade, and if the average market price for a similar level-restricted sword was about 70 gold, then he should not list it too cheap. He knew that maybe it would sell for a good 70, so he decided to put it up for 100 gold and wondered if there was some kind of good news awaiting him. While he waited, he decided to learn more about the village systems. Meanwhile, everyone who was looking at the auction house wondered about what a great item had appeared. No one was able to believe that it was crafted by a person even without a class, but they still wondered why the bid price was climbing so quickly. The bidding was going on, while suddenly the Golden Shield Guild and a person named Blam were talking to the Vice Guild Master about how the item he saw was crazy, even though the creator was a level 1 with no class. People were going mad because it was the finest sword out there, and on top of that, it also had the enchantment item. Blam was sure that the blacksmith must have used materials of the same grade, so he actually saved costs too. With just a small investment, the guild master knew that the enchantment would make this sword usable up to level 50. Blam wondered why the sword was named the first sword, questioning if a whole collection was being made. And with that kind of scale at level 1, it was valuable enough to get this sword. Blam knew that this blacksmith was amazing, shocking the whole server with just his first creation. Meanwhile, Kang was unaware of everything, wondering if his sword would even sell or not because it had only been a short while since adapting to the game, and he thought it was not that good to begin with. But suddenly, a notice popped up that his sword had been sold out immediately, and the sale was complete. Kang opened the adventure journal and saw that even though he had priced the sword at 100 gold, it had been sold for a whopping 1,080. He realized that this meant from just a single sword he had earned 1 million won, which was completely insane. The buyer was from the Golden Shield Guild, named Blam, who also sent a message telling Kang that their guild doors were always open to excellent individuals, and if he was interested in an exclusive sales contract, then he should contact them. The Golden Shield Guild was actually a massive group with 780,000 guild followers and a great reputation in the whole game. According to Kim, raising followers was even harder than leveling up, and having that many followers meant that influence and attention could lead directly to profit. As for Ryuk's followers, they were just 82. But as Kang opened the message box, he realized that these 82 followers were all really big guilds with millions of followers in total, and they were all wanting to recruit Kang no matter what. It was then that Kang realized the value of an artisan's skills, which shine brighter when backed by exact data and figures. But it was not yet his time to join a guild because he still had many things to do. Just then the scene shifted, and we saw that Kang had come to the Lord's castle, realizing that he hadn't even shown half of his skills. After increasing his stamina, he knew that his true worth was only beginning. The scene shifted to inside the Lord's castle, where the Lord was sitting on the throne while asking a man named Bell if it was really impossible. Bell smiled, looking like a scheming individual, and told the Lord that since restoration carried a chance of failure, the bow could be lost forever. Instead, that was why he must find the continent's best restoration expert. But the Lord knew that the expert could only be found in the capital, while Bell told him that with such a picky personality, he refused to meet with anyone no matter what, and to summon him all the way to the Baldan territory was not possible. The Lord knew that this was the truth, but he could not abandon the territory's affairs to go himself. The Lord looked down at a broken heirloom which was his father's only heirloom, and no one had ever seen such a uniquely shaped bow, so the Lord was actually out of options. But we saw that Bell was actually a scheming individual, a level 100 rogue disguised as a blacksmith with the skill of false promise. He had spent a week earning Lord Vance's trust so that the heirloom could be his to claim, and now was the time to reap the reward. The Lord smiled, asking Bell if the restoration cost would be 300 gold, and Bell immediately agreed, telling the Lord that if he handed him the bow, then he would take it to the capital and perfectly restore it. But just then Bell's plan was interrupted as the gates opened, and someone entered the mansion. It was none other than Kang himself, who told the Lord that there was no need to go anywhere because the bow could be restored right in the castle they were standing in. Bell's plans were suddenly collapsing in front of him, and he realized that whoever this boy was, he was ruining everything. Lord Vance was shocked with Bell being annoyed as they wondered if the burned bow could be restored right in the castle. The Lord asked the guard who the man was, and he informed the Lord that Kang was the one who came with a letter of recommendation from the instructor. Realizing it, the Lord asked Kang about his skills and experience, and Kang told the truth that his name was Ryuk, and he was a level 1 individual with an unemployed class. Hearing that, Bell was making distorted faces, not able to believe that a level 1 dared to act cocky before the Lord. Since Ryuk was classless, Bell completely broke down on him, wondering if he did not know that restoration could only be learned by a blacksmith over level 80. Bell could not believe that Kang thought that this bow was an epic grade recurve bow. Bell told Ryuk to stop interfering in his work, that he had spent a week on, and to get lost before he lost his mind. But just then Ryuk, or Kang as his real name, told Bell that the bow was not a recurve bow, but instead was named Gok Gang, which was a small but powerful high-drawing bow. Everyone was shocked because they heard the name for the first time, but Vance knew what Kang was talking about. He explained that the Lord wanted to restore the bow because it was his late father's gift, once received from a mysterious foreigner. It was a unique bow, something that could never be seen in this land. But the Lord stopped Kang, explaining that he usually treated foreigners and his territory with generosity, but he was tired of being tricked by wild claims about family heirlooms. From now on, Kang should speak only words that he could stand by, otherwise things would be bad. Kang then asked the Lord if the bow had been created right there in the world of Ares or not. Vance was shocked after this revelation, knowing that Kang was telling the truth, because as Kang explained, on his way into the hall he saw a painting of beasts that looked like water buffalo, and their horns even in his own world were a prized material. What struck Kang was the fact that the bow was curved, and instead of leather thread it used whale thread. Kang wondered if all his observations were spot on, and Lord Vance agreed, telling him that the foreigner was his father's friend and was also a blacksmith. The painting that Kang saw depicted giant water buffalo monsters from the Barden swamps. Their horns and the thread were both rare, precious materials, and with these items the blacksmith had gifted the Lord's father a bow, which was the finest one made in Barden. The Lord was impressed because Kang had noticed details that even a level 100 blacksmith could not. Bell, however, was already fuming as he was going to get thrown out. Lord Vance was sad that he could not let his father's keepsake rot away bit by bit, and only wished that he could entrust it to someone if there was a way. But then came the offer. Vance told Kang that if he was willing, the Lord would like him to restore the memento. Kang smiled as the Link quest was accepted, which needed him to restore Lord Vance's bow with the reward of 500 gold. The Lord immediately turned towards Bell, telling him to leave for now because he was not needed. The Lord promised that he would call Bell if he was needed ever again, and Bell knew that now his plan had failed. After hearing about who Ryuk actually was, and why he was coming in his way, he decided to make him pay sooner or later. After Bell was gone, the Lord immediately asked Ryuk about what must be done to restore the bow. Ryuk started listing the materials to the Lord, telling him that if it was possible then they should fetch the water buffalo horns and the whale thread, along with some oak, mulberry, and bamboo wood, plus the finishing tools that were required. As Kang had identified every material in the bow, he acquired the restoration method for the sharpshooter bow. It had a restoration limit of level 60, along with a warning that if restoration failed below 70%, the failure would destroy the item. After looking at the mystic bow, Kang remembered another flashback with his dad where he bent multiple materials here and there to fix them. Even when Kang's dad wanted to do it alone, Kang was hellbent on helping. His father could not believe that even when Kang's hands were full of calluses, he was still so absorbed in making it, and the boy told his father that he liked doing it as long as it was with him. Then his dad promised Kang that he would teach him how to work steel once he was older, and for now he should get used to handling raw materials with his hands so that he could get the feel. Kang was happy and smiled, and now he was crying in his VR pod as he promised that with the VVIP capsule's 99% sync rate, he was definitely going to do whatever he could to perfectly restore the bow. The sync rate was insane as Kang sat down meditating. Just then, even Lord Vance came in normal clothing, getting ready to help the boy. It was already night and Kang was chopping the wood so that they could shape it. Both the Lord and the boy were working together, slowly tempering the wood and giving it shape. The Lord realized that working all day was not easy and the strength in his hands was fatting, but the smile Kang had on his face while working gave even Lord Vance the strength to hold on. As the scene shifted and days passed, the Lord could not believe that they had been at it for a whole week, wondering if he should return. But Kang denied him, telling the Lord to stay and help with the frame because Kang understood the reason the Lord had come into the blacksmith shop. He wanted to restore his father's keepsake with his own hands if possible. Hearing that, the man smiled, knowing Kang was spot on because the bow was the only thing left that held his father's memory, and this was important to him. Lord Vance also wondered if something was attached for Ryuk as well, because he was enjoying himself while working on the bow. Kang smiled and agreed, telling him that he too had many good memories he wanted to restore, and restoring memories takes time and effort. The Lord understood and started working again. 10 days passed slowly, then turned into 15, 20, and finally the last day when the sharpshooter bow was finally complete. It was epic grade with a durability of 3,500, attack power of 253, and a level requirement of 80+, with the special ability of agility plus 9% and accuracy plus 22%, along with bow speed of plus 17% and a passive skill of wind-like archery, plus a triple shot capability. The sharpshooter bow was now reborn, finer and more masterful than its original form. After looking at his father's statue, Lord Vance wondered if he was watching, because once again a mysterious foreigner had given him the bow just like his father. Kang wanted Lord Vance to try it and see if it felt the same as his childhood memory. Lord Vance stretched the bow and shot precisely onto a metal sheet hovering on the wall. Kang was shocked as the Lord told him it was not the same, but then realized it was a prank, because the bow was now far greater than before. Vance smiled as the system notification popped up that the restoration of the bow was complete and had exceeded 100%, causing affinity with Lord Vance to reach the maximum. The Lord thanked Kang, realizing that now he could perform his duty with a clear heart. The promised reward felt too small for what Kang had done, so in addition to 2,000 gold coins, Vance granted Kang permission to use the blacksmith shop for free as long as he wanted. The quest reward was upgraded due to phenomenal success, and Kang knew that 2,000,000 was more than enough to cover expenses until his next journey. But suddenly Lord Vance smiled with a serious face, taking out a golden sword, asking Kang if anyone had ever taught him swordsmanship or if he had ever thought of learning it himself. We come to know that before Vance was declared the Lord of Barden, he was a swordsman and a master of prime swordsmanship. It was the secret sword art of the Prime Kingdom, the technique that subdued the endless monsters pouring in from all directions and brought stability to Barden. Without a doubt, even though Kang was born a blacksmith, he also had other talents that were noticed by Vance, which was the talent of a swordsman. In addition to what the instructor wrote in his recommendation, Vance was sure after seeing for himself that Kang had exceptional physical condition and quick reflexes when handling tools, and an unbelievably deep knowledge and understanding of all kinds of weapons. On top of that, Kang could also handle weapons well, which made Vance decide that he would share with Kang a fragment of his swordsmanship's essence. Another skill quest popped up in front of Kang, telling him that if he acquired 80% mastery in prime swordsmanship, he would acquire the skill. Lord Vance immediately came closer to him, laughing devilishly, and told him that as they did not have much time, they should stay close and Kang should learn as much as he could, explaining that if Kang worked as hard as he did in the workshop, then it would be more than enough. Kang agreed, happy to receive an unexpected gift, and thus started a busy month that flew by because he began crafting his own sharpshooter bow, restored the Mad Lord's rusted armor, and with the time left, constantly struggled to learn the swordsmanship technique of the Prime Kingdom. After a whole month, his prime swordsmanship training was complete, and he smiled, realizing he had reached the same level as Lord Vance. After the scene shifted, Vance asked if Kang was leaving right now, and we saw the new look of Kang, who thanked the Lord because due to him, he was fully prepared. Vance wondered where Kang wanted to go, and Kang just smiled, telling him that he finally thought it was time to take a proper profession. Vance told him that if he ever needed help, he was welcome in the Lord's castle anytime. After saying his goodbyes to the Lord, Kang decided it was time to organize his items before heading out, because the new equipment he forged and restored this time included the Mad Lord's armor, which was strong enough to make up for low levels thanks to its damage reflection skill, along with the brand new sharpshooter bow fitted with a 60% accuracy option. To cover living expenses during the upcoming quest, he crafted a few rare-grade bows on the side and put them up at the auction house as Ryuk's second bow, a rare-grade bow. It was one of a kind, crafted entirely from beginner-zone materials, something that may never be replicated. He wondered how much it would sell for this time. Meanwhile, people looking at the auction house were shocked. Someone said it was unbelievable to make something like this, because even Black, the #1 player, did not make a bow this good when he was level 10. But Ryuk stayed at level 1, and using nothing but low-grade materials, still managed to craft that bow. Even Smith, the world's #1 blacksmith, once said that in the end everything in the game was decided by Ares, and if Ares was moved by a player's actions, it granted them a fitting profession, skill, or title. For the master of Ryuk's forge to already be capable of crafting artifacts at this level, the man was sure that just like Smith, Ryuk must be someone who bore the title of a legendary class. We come to know that this man was the guild master of the Golden Shield Guild, named Ryan. The scene then shifted as we saw that the bow was sold for 2,050 gold coins, which was the final auction price. Kang could not believe that someone paid 2,000,001 in real money for a bow that was in-game. The system reminded us that Ryuk was not a legendary profession, but instead a level 1 unemployed blacksmith. He had 3,200 followers, and guild invitations and commission requests kept flooding in so much that he could not even check them anymore. He closed his adventurer's journal and decided to go to the Holy Land of Blacksmiths, which was his next location. the blacksmith's tower. Kang kept walking far and wide and enjoyed multiple sceneries until he finally reached a beautiful landscape with a tower touching the skies and infinitely going above Vetano. Finally, Kang was relieved that he had reached the blacksmith's tower, because seeing it in person was even more majestic than in books or novels. As he entered, he saw a huge gate bound by chains and a magical rock. He wondered how to get inside, and as he looked around, he saw that a stone tablet informed him this was the tower of the swordsmith, and to become a blacksmith, he would have to strike down the seal with a sword forged in the magical forge. The seal was made up of basalt rock and volcanic stone, and the magical forge was just on the other side of the seal. Kang entered the magical forge, and the system informed him that inside he could train in swordsmithing required for the trial, with materials and tools supplied infinitely, and production time drastically shortened compared to a normal forge. However, swords crafted in the place could only be used for the trial. Kang got ready and settled in, realizing they were only testing his forging ability with the sword. But he wondered if he was able to make a sword capable of cutting stones. Meanwhile, on the other side of the gate, a large burly man was drinking, thinking that every single one of them was a worthless idiot. They were all the same, thinking only about money they could make, not about actually crafting for the sake of it. All the blacksmiths nowadays were cranking out junk with skills and pawning it off to make money, caring nothing about true work. The man thought the way of the blacksmith was already dead and that everyone only wanted to become rich. We come to know this man was the tower master of the swordsmith, named Deng. He kept ranting about how if they only wanted the title of blacksmith, they could have it without even breaking the stone, because Deng was tired of watching the half-hearted attempts of people who were not truly swordsmithing and were not knowledgeable at all. He was sure no one would ever slice through the sealing stone, so he made it so they only needed to scratch it to qualify, and yet people could not even do that. On the other hand, Kang was already sure he was going to forge a Damascus sword. The system warned him that this mode could only be crafted by master-level blacksmiths and recommended he start with a basic iron dagger. But Kang denied, knowing that with unlimited materials available, if anyone knew the method, they could at least attempt it. He remembered from a flashback that his father told him the sword could cut through stone, and he had passed down the forging method for him to learn. Kang knew that if he followed his father's teaching, he could clear the mission. In front of such perfect magical facilities and equipment needed for forging Damascus, along with unlimited ores and reduced production time, Kang truly felt this game was insane. He started hammering away to his heart's content, shaking the whole forge. Just then, Deng, who was sleeping in his tower, woke up from an earthquake coming from the ground, wondering what was going on with such shaking that had never been felt before. The whole tower was trembling from the force of Kang's hammering. Deng was shocked and could not believe it, and before he even realized it, the sealing stone was cut in 2 halves, so smooth that the door opened immediately. Deng was stunned that someone had sliced through the sealing stone, and immediately declared the man the god of blacksmiths. As Kang entered the tower, he wondered if he had passed the trial or not. Deng revealed that since no one had ever broken the stone before, they measured ability through the sealing stone. But as Kang had split the entire stone clean, they could not measure anything. Kang was shocked that he would have to take a retest, so they went to a huge room with a magic circle on it. Kang wondered what it was for, and Deng informed him it was a summoning circle. The giant offered Kang his hammer, and after receiving it, the system told him that an S-ranked quest had begun. Suddenly, Deng pushed him straight onto the summoning circle, telling him that this was a true trial he must overcome and must succeed, because he was the god of blacksmiths. Kang was unable to comprehend what had just happened, realizing he was in a completely different place out of nowhere, wondering if this was seriously a retest. But as soon as many monsters sensed his presence, they started running towards him. The system then told him it was a double S-ranked quest of defeating the invading orc army. Kang was shocked, wondering if this was supposed to be a blacksmith quest or just a useless killing spree. Kang wondered what was going on as a horde of orcs came charging at him, and he realized he had been given the mission of subjugating them. Just then, someone shouted that Kang was the reinforcement sent by the master blacksmith, and the boy was confused about what was happening. As he turned around, he saw a large group of soldiers, and then the system displayed the clear condition. he would need to achieve 70% contribution among the 50 valiant warriors. One of the warriors, named Hans, level 48, thanked Kang for arriving and told him that he was the leader of the subjugation squad. Hans explained that the orc invasion of the Prime Kingdom was growing fiercer by the day and much of their equipment had been damaged in battle, so he asked if Kang could use his skills to repair them quickly. Kang explained to Hans that there had been a misunderstanding. He had not yet changed his class to Blacksmith and could not use any skills. Hans, shocked, asked why he was carrying a hammer then, and Kang clarified that he had received it during his class advancement test and had been sent here as part of an additional trial after passing one already. Realizing Kang's combat experience was also poor and that he was still a beginner in fighting, Hans grew frustrated. At first, he thought the Tower Master had sent them real support, but instead they were saddled with a rookie they now had to babysit. The invasion was especially fierce, so Hans decided Kang should stay in the watchtower, a safe place to wait until the squad returned. But before he could finish, a spinning axe came flying toward the squad. Before even Hans could react, Kang slashed it away and deflected it. Hans was stunned, unable to believe what he had just seen. Kang said that even though he was still a rookie, he could still join the battle. Hans questioned how someone of Kang's ability could even call himself a rookie, when he had just deflected something even Hans couldn't handle. The squad charged toward the orcs, and Kang thought to himself that maybe fighting them would be just like when he fought goblins, wondering if that would be enough. Hans ordered him to follow Ben's squad and said he would explain everything later. Ben himself thanked Kang for being there as the orcs with blood-red eyes and jaws capable of crushing bones rushed in. Kang quickly realized the pressure of this fight was completely different from fighting goblins. It was the real deal. But Kang also knew he would not lose because he had trained so hard. He cut down an orc in a single stroke and continued hacking and slashing. The system notified him that he had defeated a level 10 orc and gained experience. Kang sighed with relief, smiling at the fact that his training had paid off as he leveled up to level 2. Meanwhile, Ben, while deflecting an orc's attack, looked at Kang in shock, wondering if he truly had no class, because if that was true, then his ability was incredible. Just then, Kang noticed Ben was in danger as another orc closed in. Kang instantly swapped to his sharpshooter bow and charged an arrow with incredible speed. Using his keen eyes, he shot directly through the air, piercing the orc's head and knocking it away. Ben was stunned, barely realizing what happened. But the orcs kept coming, and Kang did not stop. He shot arrow after arrow, landing perfect headshots without missing a beat, and his level climbed higher and higher. Ben couldn't believe what he was witnessing, wondering how a measly bow could send such massive orcs flying with a single shot. But before he could dwell on it, Hans shouted at him to stop spacing out and fight, pointing out that orcs were about to ambush Kang from behind. Ben realized Kang was in danger because he had been distracted, and guilt flooded him, thinking Kang might be killed because of his carelessness. But Kang swapped to his daylight blade and unleashed his rampage skill, cutting down orcs in a sweeping motion that looked like art. Orcs who rushed at him had no idea they were running into their doom. The rampage skill indiscriminately attacked all enemies in a 10-meter radius, and Kang sliced through them as easily as thin vegetables. The system announced that Kang had already achieved 20% contribution. Hans shouted with joy, realizing why the old Master Deng had sent Kang. With him, the subjugation squad could finally accomplish what they had never been able to do before. As Kang stood tall, everyone cheered, amazed by his ability. Hans smiled and called for everyone to listen, announcing that with Kang's support, they would annihilate all the orc forces without fail. Kang's performance boosted the squad's morale, earning him even more contribution percentage. Kang also felt that he was finally part of the squad, though he knew he had to keep leveling up because he could no longer remain just a level 1 blacksmith. He fought relentlessly, wiping out orcs again and again, his level climbing multiple times as his contribution rose to 28%. Still, Kang wondered why his percentage wasn't increasing as quickly as he expected. Suddenly, the system alerted him to a hidden quest. Because he was subjugating orcs faster than anyone else, he had triggered a special episode. As the squad fought, a massive stomp echoed across the battlefield. The system announced the arrival of a new enemy, a massive orc warrior of level 51. Hans immediately ordered everyone to stop, warning that they would be crushed by the monster's overwhelming size. Hands could not believe the orc warrior had appeared. It was their sworn enemy, one they had never been able to defeat. But another squad member called out, pointing out that they were surrounded on all sides. Hands realized it was his mistake. They had been too focused on fighting and had pushed too deep. But the morale of Ben and the others was sky-high, and they shouted that today would be the day they finally brought down the foul monsters. Ben declared they would never retreat, and hearing that, Hands felt the same, rallying everyone by saying they couldn't let things stay like this forever. The squad, filled with pride, raised their shields and swords, determined to fight without mercy. Kang, however, knew this was reckless. The squad had lost their cool and were charging in blindly. He tried to provide cover fire with his bow, but even with its increased penetration and accuracy, his arrows barely scratched the orc warrior's tough skin, which was like armor. On the other side, Hands was already doubting if this was enough and feared they would have to retreat once again, especially as casualties grew among his men. But no one wanted to back down. Then, with one brutal strike, the orc warrior cut off Hands's right hand. Hands didn't even have time to process what happened before Kang screamed his name in disbelief, unable to accept what had just occurred. On the other hand, we see Ben, who was still holding the tattered shield in his hand, while he could hear the screams, knowing that no matter what he did, he could not pierce the armor of the orc warriors. He knew that if this was not possible, then they were all going to be wiped out. But as Kang was there, he told everyone to calm down, knowing that if they continued this battle, their losses would only grow. Kang gave a plan to everyone that they must first form a line and focus only on defense. They would have to retreat quickly to the forest behind them, and he promised that he would also follow them shortly after doing something. Ben screamed that everyone should follow Kang's command because they needed to get the leader to safety and also regroup. Everyone screamed that they were retreating to the forest right now, while Kang stayed behind to fight with the orc warriors, forming a defensive line. At last, it was Ben who came to Kang, telling him that their speed would also be reduced in the forest due to the other orc warriors, and in the end it would only buy them a little time. Kang thought for a moment and then told Ben that if they could only hold off for 5 minutes it would be good. Ben was shocked, promising Kang that he would hold out no matter what. As the scene shifted, we saw that Kang was running through the forest while wondering if there were arrows that could pierce the sturdy armor of the orc warriors, but he knew that it was indeed possible with the right items. Deep within the forest, he took out the hammer given to him by Dengi. It was the hammer of replication with the passive skill of duplicating consumables and the active skill of shortening crafting time. The boy knew that it was possible, and he was determined. On the other hand, we saw that all the fighters were trying to keep the orc warriors away and buy some time for Kang to do his work. The warriors were critically wounded slowly but surely, but still they were somehow holding on, and Ben was increasing their morale, knowing that they would have to hold on for just 5 minutes. This time was enough, and he was sure that they were not going to retreat. Finally, they were subjugating the orc warriors, but the warrior was so huge that Ben did not dodge in time, and a huge slash was thrown towards him. But all of a sudden it was blocked, and somehow Ben was able to dodge the deflected axe. Then a second arrow came, piercing through the armor, and blood splattered all around. Ben was unable to believe that the orc warriors' impenetrable armor-like skin was pierced and bleeding. Wondering what was happening, he turned around and saw that it was none other than Kang himself, holding a shiny arrow charged to the maximum for piercing the armor of the orc warriors. It looked simple, but it was sturdy. The orc warrior screamed in pain and agony, unable to believe that its skin had been pierced, but it was of no use because Kang had already slain it completely while still having multiple arrows to do the same with the other orc warriors. Meanwhile, Ben called out to Kang and thanked him for coming back just at the right time. We came to know that this arrow was named the Broad Genesis Arrow, which had the piercing power of 70% and an arrow speed of 60%. With its short shaft, the arrow flew faster and had a destructive force that could shatter even a rock. He had made the shaft by splitting bamboo along with the arrows, which were carved and replicated by the hammer. Kang had successfully created a counter, and by combining the two things with the sharpshooter bow, it created a new set which had an overall increase in attack power of 5% and piercing power of 10%. The sharpshooter bow and arrow were such a deadly combination that all the orc warriors were slowly getting damaged, and the morale of the subjugation squad was suddenly boosted as they realized they had to create an opening for Kang to attack. Meanwhile, our boy was once again splitting the heads of the orc warriors without any mercy, because the piercing power of the sharpshooter bow was now comparable to a matchlock rifle. And as Kang was the creator of the arrows, he knew how to use their full potential, blowing holes straight into the orc warriors' impenetrable chests. Finally, a notification popped up that he had defeated an orc warrior and had leveled up multiple times. As one orc warrior slammed down, the others were completely scared of our boy. Another notification popped up that Kang had acquired the title Orc Slayer, and attack power against orcs increased by 15%, further increasing their fear towards our boy. Knowing that this was not going anywhere, the orc warriors started running away just by the sight of him. But all the members of the subjugation squad started running towards them, knowing that they had to finish them. Kang was at the front of everyone, and we saw that he immediately jumped from the cliff and rushed toward the running orc warrior with crimson eyes, making a cool-looking pose as he struck down the orc with his self-made bow. This was enough to strike fear into the orc warrior as it saw the inevitable and exploded straight toward its own death. As Kang landed, the system notification popped up, telling him that the S-ranked quest of subjugating the invading orc army had been completed, and the final contribution of our boy was 92%. We came to know that he had finally cleared the quest with a phenomenal record, and every single member of the orc subjugation squad started cheering for our boy. They were ecstatic about Kang's performance, almost crying tears of joy because their suffering had finally come to an end. The subjugation squad started trusting Kang's leadership, and the hidden piece of the puzzle, the one who leads the battlefield title, was acquired with the special ability stat named Charisma, which had also increased by 10. But Kang suddenly turned around as he saw that Ben was actually coming together with the leader Hans, who was still smiling even after his hand was cut. He told Kang that they were so focused on just defending that the leader had never thought they would achieve this in their whole lifetime. Their long-cherished wish of the subjugation of the orcs was finally completed, and even with the amputated hand, the leader cried and saluted our boy, thanking him again and again for doing so. All the 50 members of the subjugation squad saluted Kang for his leadership, and our boy was almost crying after this feat, thanking them all because it was due to them that he was able to hold on. Finally, reality struck Kang that the additional test was over, and now he decided to head back to the blacksmith's tower. But just then, another reality set in. How would he get back to the tower once again? The scene shifted to the central tower hall of the blacksmiths, a breathtaking building that is built around the towers. Inside, Master Deng announced that the blacksmith's tower had fallen into decline, and that all honor and glory now belonged to the knights. Around him, many other masters stood in a circle, surrounding a glowing blue sword placed in the middle of the hall. Master Deng declared that only those blinded by gold coins came to the blacksmith's tower, but what the tower truly needed was someone who carried the soul of a blacksmith. To find such a person, one must prove worthy of grasping the sword. The sword itself looked mesmerizing, radiating a brilliant blue aura that made it clear it could not be wielded by an ordinary person. Despite countless candidates, the blacksmith masters had not yet found the chosen one. The prophecy left behind by the god of blacksmiths remained unfulfilled, the prophecy of a successor who would appear to restore prosperity. An old master, wearing a sarcastic grin, mocked Deng by jeering that among the tower masters, is Deng himself even qualified to face the sword trial? He deliberately emphasized the title Great Deng in a mocking tone. Another master then raised a question, suggesting that the prophecy might be a mere deception and that summoning them all had been a waste of time. Before he could finish, Carlson, the same old man, also the tower master of the bow smiths, completed the statement asking Deng about how the trial rights can be granted to a young foreigner. Deng remained calm and asked Carlson whether he had read the letter he had sent earlier. He continued, explaining that the qualification was rightfully earned by one who had passed the test. Moreover, he reminded the assembly that even without changing class, he had led soldiers and displayed unmatched blacksmithing prowess in annihilating the orc warriors. The masters were shaken by the revelation. Without class advancement, Deng had already achieved such a feat. The trial, he explained, had been established because the successor of the god of blacksmiths must be stronger than anyone else. Ultimately, the sword itself would decide. With sharp, unwavering eyes, Deng silently reflected that the proud old masters would soon witness something extraordinary. His thoughts were interrupted when a servant entered, announcing that Lord Kang had arrived at the hall. Deng ordered that he be brought into the blacksmith's sanctuary. Carrying the aura of a destined hero, Kang made his entrance. The masters greeted him with emphasis on the word foreigner and declared that he had passed the test, earning the right to enter the sanctuary. Deng further informed him that he was now qualified to challenge the prophecy sword left by the god of blacksmiths. Kang gazed at the glowing blue sword with unwavering determination. Deng added that the moment Kang grasped the sword, everything would be decided, and afterward, he would receive a fitting reward. The promise of a fitting reward stirred Kang's thoughts. He recalled clearing an additional SS rank quest during the class advancement test and wondered if this was connected to a legendary class advancement. Before Kang could reflect further, one of the masters congratulated him for standing within such a glorious place, praising his quick wit and remarkable combat performance. Carlson, however, sneered and mocked him by telling him that the arrow Kang crafted was merely a derivative of Solnarian. In the end, he was only lucky, and that without that epic-grade bow, he would never have passed the trial. With a confident smirk, Carlson ordered him to draw the sword, taunting him to show everyone whether his luck had run out or if fortune would favor him once again. Kang stood calm and indifferent, his expression betraying no emotion. The masters of the blacksmith's tower were legends in their own right, top-tier named figures whose titles and levels inspired awe. They were the top-tier named NPCs, and Carlson himself, the tower master of the bowsmiths, was level 365. Their power was undeniable, but that did not mean Kang's skills fell short. If strength were measured without titles, Kang's abilities might well rival theirs. Before such thoughts could unfold, the blue sword suddenly trembled. Cracks spread across the floor beneath it, startling Deng and the other masters. The sanctuary filled with a violent blue aura, winds surging as the sword's energy pushed the masters back. The dazzling scene seemed as though the sword itself was responding. Then, in an instant, the sword vanished into thin air, absorbed directly into Kang's body. Shock rippled through the hall as a surge of purple aura erupted from him, leaving behind trails of smoke. Even Kang himself was stunned, uncertain of how the sword had fused with him. The prophecy had begun to awaken. Kang himself was stunned, questioning where the sword had suddenly gone. Deng, on the other hand, spoke in a joyous tone, his voice brimming with excitement as he declared that his thoughts had been proven right about Kang being the one to draw the sword. His sudden smile widened into booming laughter as he exclaimed that this was the true meaning of the prophecy. Until now, they had merely been inventing empty rituals and procedures, but this moment was its true fulfillment. Deng's laughter echoed through the hall, while Carlson stood frozen, his ugly face twisted in confusion. Questions flooded his mind, desperately seeking a way to deny the scene before him. Deng continued with confidence, announcing that if one were truly the successor, there was never a need to even touch the sword. Carlson's expression shifted to anger and envy. His face darkened, and curses spilled from his lips as he refused to accept Kang's trial. But before his protest could rise further, a radiant golden light burst forth and spread through the sanctuary. The voice of the system resounded across the hall, proclaiming that the very first god class in the Ares world had awakened, and that it belonged to Kang. At first, Kang could not believe it, thinking that something like a god class should have been given to Madhu himself, because he was the bulky one and not Kang. But the greenhorn in this field was the one getting the god of the blacksmith instead, which was announced in front of everyone in a golden status window. Kang smiled, unable to hide his emotions about how much he wanted to become one. And it was announced once again that Kang, at level 10, was now the god of blacksmiths. Kang still wondered what a god class was, and this was the first ever in Ares. Deng, on the other hand, was enjoying this wholeheartedly. The system told Kang that he had received the unique title of God of Blacksmiths, which was a triple S rank, and whenever crafting artifacts, Kang was not restricted by the materials level, and his mastery would increase according to the type. As a blacksmith, it was declared that Kang was stronger than anyone else. The God Blast quest was triggered, but since it begins at level 100, Kang would have to do it later. Meanwhile, all the Tower Masters were shocked to see that the prophecy was true, because the sword had really chosen the foreigner and the successor of the God of Blacksmiths was active. But before they could even finish the sentence, it was Coulson who started screaming with a distorted face that he could not accept it at all. All the Tower Masters had been waiting for the great successor who would receive the revelation of the God of Blacksmiths, but they could not conclude that the sword's choice was truly the will of the God of Blacksmiths. Deng knew that now Coulson was just blabbering nonsense, telling him that the prophecy was absolute and there was nothing to change. But still, Coulson believed that this was all a farce, and the successor should be the one recognized by all the Tower Masters instead, because that too was part of the prophecy. Therefore, Coulson decided that, being a master of the Bow Blacksmith Tower, he was going to challenge the foreigner to a blacksmith's duel. And if Kang defeated him, only then would Coulson recognize him as their successor. But if Coulson won, then the boy would have to abandon the position chosen by the prophecy sword and give it up completely. Deng told everyone that maybe Coulson had lost his reason and that they should restrain the man at once. But all the other Tower Masters were not moving at all. It was as if they were getting excited to truly see the powers of the blacksmith god, and Deng realized it too. Meanwhile, Coulson was still blabbering about how Kang could also run away and it would be fine, but in that case he would be granted the position of wise Tower Master. As long as Kang obediently received Coulson's training, it would be acceptable. Every other Tower Master was laughing at this proposal, and Coulson was just smirking. But to everyone's disbelief, Kang immediately agreed because there was nothing for him to fear. Now Kang was gleaming with a golden aura as he accepted Coulson's challenge through the battle of blacksmiths. And we also came to know that the God of Blacksmiths had a secret skill named God's Custom Crafting. Kang decided to speak through his skill instead. We come to know that the blacksmith's duel was actually something completely different from all the other duels, and a system notification popped up telling them that a new quest had been created and that Kang would have to win a duel against Coulson. The old man explained that they would all have to work on a sword that is forged in the smith with one's soul, and the rule was simple. They would clash with the swords they crafted, and whichever one breaks first loses. Inside the hall, the finest smithy had been prepared, and now that Kang had also gained blacksmith skills, a single day should be enough for him to craft a good item. If he was truly the god of blacksmiths, then he would be able to do so. Coulson decided to see him tomorrow, giving him a whole 24 hours, with the others also following him, thinking that the god of blacksmiths was given to the wrong person. Meanwhile, Deng informed Kang that he had accepted the duel far too rashly because Coulson was one of the most skilled among the Tower Masters, and even if he had obtained the power of the god, Kang still needed more time to grow. But the boy knew that it was true, and if he was still in his previous profession, then it would have been an unwinnable battle. But in the in-game arena, incredible skills and buffs were granted depending on his titles and levels. On top of that, the Tower Masters each had their unique special abilities, but when he changed into the God class, these differences disappeared. Now the only difference came from pure skill. Because of the skill that he had gained, named God's Custom Creation, its description read that he could custom create the artifact that he desired and could imbue the artifact with any effect he wanted. The higher the effect's grade, the more difficult the crafting becomes, and effectiveness applied from 0 to 100% depending on the crafting skill. As the scene shifts, we see that the old man Coulson was actually making a sword in the smithy while thinking that he was a blacksmith who forged swords first because a sword forging art had been passed down through generations in his family, and he was the rightful heir, having inherited the craft from his father. But then someone far more skilled appeared all of a sudden, and it was Deng. So instead of a swordsmith, Coulson had to become the master of the Tower of the Bow. He somehow accepted it, even when it was bitter to serve the great Deng. But now that Deng had brought in some outsider, some nobody from who knows where, and now he was placed above Coulson, that he could not endure at all. He could endure being second place, but to be the third was out of the question. So he was smacking the metal as hard as he could and was taking out all the anger onto his craft. On the other hand, in another smithy, we see Kang, who was sweating while he made a fine-looking but normal sword. Meanwhile, Deng was standing on the side, wondering about the process of granting abilities and effects to artifacts. It followed the basic law of gain and loss. To gain an advantage in this duel, Kang knew that he must prioritize durability and maximize the weapon breaker attribute, which meant that to obtain the ability that Kang wanted, he must craft at the highest grade possible. Yet Kang's durability and attributes were only at rare grade. Deng wondered if it would be all right. He wondered just what Kang's thoughts were, and why he could not comprehend the abilities of the god of blacksmiths. As the scene shifts, we see that it was the next day, and both Coulson and Kang were standing with their swords. Coulson mocked the boy once again, commending him for not running away. Coulson was telling everyone in disbelief that maybe Kang had managed to craft something overnight, and looking at this, the boy was getting annoyed, but he still did not say anything. While Coulson wanted to see if it was truly worthy of being called the successor of the gods, first Coulson was the one who decided to take out his sword and introduced it in front of everyone. It was named the Dark Knight Asterisk, with a durability of 12,000 and attack power of 664. It had a passive skill of Weapon Breaker and an active skill of Light of Dark Knight. Meanwhile, we see that Deng was watching everything with curious eyes as he saw that Coulson's skill was extraordinary, and his sword was actually shining brightly in the dark atmosphere. To craft such a flawless, unique sword overnight was crazy. They started praising Coulson, and he took it as if it was already given that he would win. It was a masterpiece that was imbued with Coulson's family tradition and secret techniques. But now it was Kang's turn to take out the sword, and as the boy started drawing it out while throwing the cover, Coulson was shocked while Deng happily clapped his hands. We come to know that it was Kang's first custom-crafted sword. It was a rare-grade sword with a durability of 1,000 and attack power of 177. Coulson was really annoyed by the fact that it was just a rare-grade sword, which was ridiculous. Everyone thought that maybe Coulson was right after all, and as he saw the consensus leaning towards him, Coulson smiled devilishly, telling Deng that he had made a grave mistake this time by choosing an outsider that was not worthy. He thought that Kang's sword was just a pathetic toy and immediately ran towards it to break it, thinking that it would end in one fell swoop. And he was right because it did end in just one fell swoop. Even Kang ran towards the old man, and to no one's surprise, one sword did actually break. But the actual surprise, even to Deng, was the fact that in reality, Coulson's sword had broken, and Kang had been able to cut the sword made by Coulson. He wondered how it had happened, and Kang simply told the old man that a sword was not decided only by grade alone. We then come to know the full abilities of Kang's sword. It had the active skill of Sword Sever, which was able to cut other swords with a 65% chance of severing an opponent's weapon. It was a one-of-a-kind sword that could not be repaired and was destroyed when its durability reached 0. But just then, after reading everything, Coulson had a flashback when his dad told him that the god of blacksmiths would appear in this land, and he would shatter all common sense and guide them to new teachings. Everyone would be given the chance to meet him. The young Coulson had wanted to become a great blacksmith so that he could receive those teachings, and now he realized how badly he had behaved. Even Deng was happy because of a conversation in the past that simply breaking swords would not convince the tower masters, and that was why he would forge a sword that cut other swords. Deng had even wondered if this was really possible, but Kang knew that it was never an easy task. Creating an artifact of that level always came down to a blacksmith's skill and effort. God's custom creation had a description that told everyone that the higher the effect's grade, the harder the crafting, and its effectiveness depended on the crafting skill. Deng knew that Kang made a choice that defied common sense, and the knowledge and ability to bring such a vision into reality were proof that Kang possessed everything without worry. Finally, Coulson spoke after an awkward silence, addressing Kang as the god of blacksmiths, and wondering if he could ever also craft a sword like this one that could cut other swords. Kang just smiled at Coulson, telling him that the word impossible does not exist in blacksmithing. Hearing that, Coulson started crying while bowing down in front of the boy, telling him that Coulson, the master of the Tower of the Bow, was standing before the god of blacksmiths. Finally, the notification popped up telling everyone that the quest had been cleared.